Frank Worrell and Richie Benaud toss in near-century Melbourne heat prior to the start of the second test match. A good first-day crowd of 32,000 waits for play to start, no doubt hoping for a repetition of the sensational first test in Brisbane. Benaud calls correctly and has no hesitation in batting on a pitch which, although a little green on top, looks perfect for batting. West Indies express merchant Wesley Hall bowls the first ball of the innings to Colin MacDonald, and the Australian scoring is underway. Lindsay Klein has been named as 12th man for Australia, while Cammy Smith fills the same position for the West Indies. Hall, as usual, bowls with a good deal of life and pace early in the innings, but MacDonald is batting confidently and scores freely. Seven runs are taken from Hall's opening over, 5 to MacDonald and 2 to Simpson. Chester Watson takes the ball at the northern or members end, and MacDonald's shot into the covers is worth a single as Valentine fields. Bob Simpson faces Watson, and a confident appeal for LBW is disallowed by umpire Hoy. When Watson bowls again, Simpson plays the finest shot of the innings so far, a sweet cover drive that was 4 from the time it left the bat. A good beginning, with Australia none for 15 after 2 overs. Hall, as usual, commands great respect, but he has his lapses, like this ball, which umpire Eager has no hesitation in calling a wide. Watson's next over to MacDonald is a good one, and the bowler is able to make several balls rise sharply, although the West Indies bowlers still can't get the early breakthrough. In Hall's next over, MacDonald gives evidence that he's not entirely happy as he edges one to Sobers, and it's big Wesley Hall who provides the first sensation of the innings when he has MacDonald caught off his hand at slip by Watson. It's a great break for the West Indians to get rid of the solid MacDonald for 15, and the drinks are just as welcome to the parched fieldsman as MacDonald's wicket. Australia 1 for 35, and Harvey the new batsman facing Hall. Harvey's off the mark with a single past point, with the sun-hatted West Indies skipper Frank Worrell doing the chasing. Australia 46 runs in the first hour, and the 50 comes up when Harvey crashes Watson straight back for 4. Harvey is on the lookout for runs, and at this stage looks to be in no trouble against the opening attack. At the other end, Simpson is treating every ball on its merits. A good plan for an opening batsman. The first bowling change with Garfield Sobers in his role of medium pacer. Harvey appreciates the change as he swings Sobers to fine leg for 4. Another artistic Harvey stroke, but this time it brings him only a single. The end of Sobers' first over brings another bowling change, with skipper Frank Worrell coming on to accompany Sobers with similar left-arm medium paces. Harvey watches Worrell carefully, but he's not to last much longer as he mistimes a drive and is neatly caught by Wesley Hall at first slip. It's a blow to Australia's hopes, but a great boost for the West Indies to get rid of both MacDonald and Harvey, with the score standing at only 60. Harvey out for 12, and Norman O'Neill the next batsman. After a poor start to the season, O'Neill has now scored 3 centuries against the tourists, and the Victorian crowd is hoping for a big score from the right-hander. O'Neill soon opens his account with a single past point. After the early setbacks in the Australian innings, Simpson and O'Neill begin to consolidate, and when Sobers bowls to O'Neill, this shot brings up the Australian 100, compiled in the excellent time of 99 minutes. Simpson has played an extremely useful innings for his side, treating every ball on its merits, but he's destined not to reach his half-century as he's out in Hall's next over when attempting to glance, and Alexander accepts the chance. Simpson is out for a valuable 49 runs, but with the Australian total at 3 for 105, the West Indies are right on top, with skipper Frank Worrell having the bowling honours at this stage. Les Favell is the new batsman, and he's quickly among the runs when he gets a loud no-ball call from umpire Hoy and hooks Watson to within 2 yards of the fine leg fence. It's hot work for Wesley Hall in his second spell, with the thermometer showing over 100 and Norman O'Neill at the batting crease. 1 o'clock must be welcome relief for the players as they leave the field for lunch, with Australia 3 for 114, O'Neill 28 and Favell 4. With MacDonald, Harvey and Simpson all back in the pavilion, it's a good morning's cricket for the West Indies. The crowds loved every minute of the morning session and braved the scorching heat as the battle continues. Watson continues the attack to O'Neill, and a cut to third man sets the Australian total moving again. Favell too is on the lookout for runs and gives us the chance to study the form of star batsman Rowan Kanhai, who was a doubtful starter in this match with a leg injury. The Australian 150 is past 40 minutes after lunch, but in Worrell's next over there's further trouble for Australia when O'Neill glances and Sobers takes a magnificent catch at leg slip. A great effort by this versatile cricketer, and Australia now in trouble with 4 down for 155, with Ken MacKay, the new batsman, to face Worrell. MacKay plays defensively, and it's the end of a great over by Worrell, with his figures 2 for 23. Sobers again, this time to Favell, and the South Australian slams him wide of mid-on for 4, giving Chester Watson a hopeless chase. It's absorbing cricket, and with the visitors on top, Worrell brings on bespectacled left-arm spinner Alf Valentine. Favell is anxious to build up the Australian total, but he can't always beat the well-set field. Favell completes the first 50 of the Australian innings when he turns Valentine to square leg, but he scores only 1 more run before he's dismissed Court Nurse off Sobers at backward square leg, and the Australian total slumps to 5 for 189. A good knock by Les Favell, top score to this stage. Alan Davidson is the new batsman, and it's no surprise that Davidson is quickly off the mark with a single to third man. There's more drama in Valentine's next over when Davidson edges and the acrobatic Sobers just fails to hold what would have been a magnificent catch. Davidson celebrates the let-off by forcing Valentine square on the offside, while his Queensland partner Ken MacKay also takes to the spinner with an elegant cut for 3, which brings up the Australian 200. The two left-handers consolidate their partnership with some attractive batting against the West Indies spinner. There's a good deal of conjecture as to whether Worrell will take the new ball, which is due, but with tea approaching, he pins his faith in the spin of Valentine and now Ramadan. MacKay attempts no fireworks, and at tea, the Australian innings has improved to 5 for 241, MacKay 31 and Davidson 35. Chester Watson takes the new ball immediately after tea and takes good advantage of it to bowl a maiden over to Alan Davidson. But the crowd's in store for sensations galore in Hall's first over with the new ball. First, MacKay forces him away to backward square leg for a single. And now, here's Wesley Hall in full cry with the new ball to Davidson. Davidson bowled Hall 35, Australia 6 for 242, and Hall's figures 3 for 40. Australian captain Richie Benaud comes to the wicket and takes guard from umpire Hoy. Now watch as Hall bowls 3 successive full tosses to Benaud, resulting in 2 runs, a thump on the thigh, and finally the end of Benaud's brief innings. Another wicket to Wesley Hall, and with Australia 7 for 244, Hall's figures 4 for 42. Wicketkeeper Wally Grout is the next batsman, and he's determined not to give Hall a 3rd wicket in a sensational over. It's crowd-pleasing cricket, with the West Indies thirsting for more blood. But it's not Ken MacKay's blood just yet, although Chester Watson keeps the tension at breaking point with this ball which clean bowls Wally Grout. Watson's first wicket, and Australia 8 for 251. And now into the arena of the Melbourne cricket ground strides Johnny Martin, playing in his first test match. Martin quickly provides his answer to the successes of the West Indies bowlers. It's a fighting rearguard action by the Australian left-handers, and Ken MacKay bursts from defence to play his part in the Australian comeback. So the score mounts, and when Worrell comes on again, Martin hits him for a towering 6 to bring up the Australian 300. The Melbourne crowd has taken Johnny Martin to its heart and loves his gay cavalier approach to batting. In this over from Ramadan, an attempted stumping and a confident appeal for LBW, both disallowed. There's no doubting the entertainment value of Johnny Martin. The invaluable 9th wicket partnership continues on its merry way, and the next milestone in this action-packed day is Johnny Martin's 50 in his maiden test innings, a 50 that's greeted by heartfelt applause from the Melbourne crowd. However, the partnership is destined not to reach the century, and Ramadan strikes the vital blow by bowling MacKay to end a typically determined innings of 74. Australia 9 for 348, and MacKay and Martin added 97. Sydney sider Frank Misson is also playing his first test match, and he faces Ramadan, while at least one of the crowd can't restrain himself any longer. The end comes when Valentine bowls and Martin attempts to hit him out of the ground. Martin out for 55 and the Australian total 348, leaving the West Indies 10 minutes to bat before stumps. The Australians take the field, and Hunte and Solomon are the opening batsmen for the West Indies. Left-arm fast bowler Alan Davidson will open the attack, and the Australians are hoping for a quick wicket before stumps. Davidson bowls the first ball of the innings to Conrad Hunte. Davidson bowls again, and the West Indies open their account as Hunte gets a single on the onside. Single brings Joe Solomon to face Davidson, and as he waits for the left-hander to bowl again, the slip field of Benaud in the gully, MacKay 3rd slip, Harvey 2nd, Simpson 1st, and wicketkeeper Wally Grout wait expectantly for any chance that might come their way. They don't have to wait long for the anticipated chance. Davidson bowls the next ball to Solomon. A faint touch and the West Indies have lost their first wicket. Solomon out caught behind for no score, and at stumps on the first day, the West Indies, in reply to Australia's first innings total of 348, have lost 1 wicket for 1. It's another day of near-century heat in Melbourne as Seymour Nurse and Conrad Hunte, easily distinguished in his white sun hat, continue the West Indies innings. Nurse takes guard, and Alan Davidson will bowl the last ball of his unfinished over. There's almost a sensation first ball, but Davidson's appeal for LBW is disallowed and Nurse lives to fight another day. At this moment, the shade temperature is 97 degrees and the big crowd of just on 40,000 would like a cool change, and they'd also like to see Frank Misson bowl a successful first over in Test cricket. Misson's second ball. He's bowling to Conrad Hunte. An edge, Simpson dives at first slip and Hunte is out for one. Misson's teammates don't attempt to hide their delight at his early success and at the fact that a class batsman like Hunte is on his way back to the pavilion. West Indies 2 for 1, Davidson and Misson each a wicket, and the brilliant Rowan Kanhai at the crease. Misson bowls again, and Kanhai is off the mark with a flashing square cut which brings him 3 runs to open his account. Kanhai scored a scintillating double century on this ground against Victoria 6 weeks ago and looks to be set for another big score in this test match. When Nurse faces Misson, a shot to square leg brings a single, and this is unexpectedly increased to 5 when Martin's return to the bowler's end goes through for 4 overthrows. A pleasant change of luck for the West Indies after their early misfortune. Davidson again, and Nurse's shot into the covers is fielded by 12th man Klein, fielding substitute for the injured MacKay. Kanhai is obviously prepared to attack the bowling, and once he beats the close slip field, it's a fairly safe bet that umpire Hoy will eventually signal a boundary. Davidson is bowling with plenty of life, but Kanhai is in brilliant form, and his fluent off drive brings him another 3 runs. It's a great recovery by the West Indians and is fully appreciated by the sun-tanned crowd. Misson continues bowling to 3 slips and 2 gullies, hoping for the batsman to find an edge, but with Kanhai almost everything is hit plumb in the middle. Nurse, on the other hand, is content to let the runs come, but he's playing an extremely useful innings for his side, and in Davidson's next over, a cut through the slips adds 4 to the score. Davidson's reply is not long in coming, but Nurse sees the bouncer all the way, and the fast left-arm bowler has Nurse playing him defensively during the remainder of the over. After 4 overs from the southern end, Misson gives way to Australian captain Richie Benaud, and Kanhai watches the leg spinner carefully before attempting to play any of his strokes against him. Nurse, too, is quite content to treat Benaud with respect, as the West Indies are still very much in the innings-building stages. After 50 minutes of play, Kanhai and Nurse have added 38, and the total stands at 2 for 39. Davidson bowls on in the scorching Melbourne sun, and Kanhai greets him with an equally scorching off-drive that burns its way over the green grass to the boundary. Lovers of cricket are loud in their praises of the superb stroke-making of Rowan Kanhai. When Davidson bowls again to Nurse, central figure is wicketkeeper Wally Grout, whose diving save adds to the interest of the morning's cricket. 12 eager hands wait for Seymour Nurse to make a rash stroke against Davidson, but Nurse just won't be tempted. As the field changes over and Benaud bowls again to Kanhai, there's more action and more runs. Nurse tries to emulate his more dashing partner, but the single just isn't there. When Benaud calls Johnny Martin into the attack to relieve Davidson, the move is greeted by a burst of applause from the enthusiastic crowd. Their enthusiasm matches that of Martin, spinning the ball from hand to hand in characteristic fashion and anxious to get on with the job. Martin's first ball in Test cricket is a good one. It must be when a batsman of the calibre of Kanhai is forced onto the defensive. But you can't keep a good batsman down, and Kanhai pulls Martin through mid-wicket, sending Richie Benaud on a fruitless chase to the boundary. 4 more onto the West Indies total, and Kanhai's innings now in full flower. Kanhai square cuts again for a single, And another blemish in the otherwise excellent Australian fielding results in one overthrow. There's more excitement when Benaud bowls and Nurse gives a semblance of a chance to Simpson at slip. It's still heatwave weather, but when light rain begins to fall and the crowd makes for shelter, it seems that the anticipated cool change is soon to become a reality. Nurse continues to play Benaud circumspectly, but in typical West Indian fashion takes runs when they're offering. One of the highlights of the morning's play was Les Favell's returns from the outfield. But the highlight was the glorious batting of Rowan Kanhai. Irresistible batting like this from a man who came to the wicket when his side had lost 2 wickets to 1, chasing a total of 348. This boundary brings up Kanhai's 50 and makes the West Indies a much more respectable 2 for 80. Nurse is not so confident, but is giving Kanhai great support, and both batsmen score off Martin's next over. At this point, the applause is almost continuous, with both batsmen scoring off the spinners. Nurse's shot to deep mid-wicket gives MacDonald a long chase, and his return from the deep is typical of the Australian out-cricket. 3 to Nurse brings Kanhai back, and while he's at the crease, the cricket's always lively. More evidence of the quality of the Australian fielding is provided when O'Neill's bullet-like return breaks the stumps. Martin again, and Kanhai hits him high over mid-wicket for 3 runs to bring up the West Indies 100 in little worse than even time. A great effort by Kanhai and Nurse, considering the position when they came together. Now the West Indies are at least an even chance in their chase after the Australian total. With Kanhai going after the runs, Nurse is doing a first-class job staying with him. In an effort to break the partnership, Benaud brings Misson back into the attack, but Kanhai continues to score. One more onto the score when Nurse gets a late call from a Misson no ball and can't put it away. Misson's second spell sees him bowling with only 2 slips, and an accurate over ends with Nurse playing defensively. With lunch approaching, Benaud brings leg spinner Bob Simpson into the attack in a further effort to break the partnership which has realised more than a century. That one should have landed in the Olympic stand. For the most part, Simpson bowls wide of the off stump, and his first over is a maiden. With the clock showing 1 minute to 1, the umpires decide on 1 more over before lunch, and in it, Davidson almost ends the stand when he has Nurse playing at and missing an outswinger. Ever on the attack, Benaud places himself and Martin close on the leg side in an attempt to entice Nurse, but the Australians can't take advantage of the move as Davidson bowls wide of the stumps. Nurse safely sees out the over from Davidson, and as the players leave the field for lunch, the West Indies score stands at 2 for 105, Kanhai on 69 and Nurse 33. During the lunch break, Melbourne's heat wave ends and down comes the rain. The ground staff is quick to apply the covers, and after a break of half an hour, play resumes with Benaud bowling to Kanhai. As Martin fields, there's ample evidence of how slippery the rain has made the outfield. There's further incident when Kanhai deflects the ball to Simpson at slip. Benaud seems to think it was a catch, but umpire Eager turns down the appeal, and Benaud wastes no time in getting on with the game. With conditions made tricky by the damp conditions, the batsmen are on the defensive, and Davidson bowls a maiden over to Nurse. After removing some muddy turf from his boots, Benaud continues the attack, and he too bowls a maiden, this time to Kanhai, an over highlighted by a superb return from the covers by Harvey, which breaks the stumps. Down comes the rain again, and after a signal from the umpires, the covers are again brought onto the ground for a second interruption, this time permanent, as the players race for cover. There's been only half an hour's play since lunch, and in that time, against some accurate bowling, Kanhai and Nurse have added only 3 runs. In the meantime, there's some comic relief for the crowd from the inevitable character who invariably appears on the scene to provide entertainment. Melbourne Cricket Ground curator Bill Watt isn't speedy enough to bring the offender to justice, and it's finally left to the law to take its own course. Helps to pass the time, but the rain continues and the umpires decide no more play is possible, with the West Indies 2 for 108, 240 runs behind the Australian total, with 8 wickets standing and 3 days to play. Which is evenly poised, and all eyes are focused on Rohan Kanhai as he takes guard from umpire Hoy prior to facing the first ball of the morning from Alan Davidson. A straight drive to open the day's proceedings, and Kanhai's score goes to 72. For Alan Davidson, such treatment so early in the morning is harsh, but there's more to follow. There's no chance of stopping that one, and Kanhai takes 6 runs off Davidson's opening over. At the other end, with Benaud bowling, Seymour Nurse on 35 continues from where he left off on Saturday, playing each ball on its merits, picking up the odd single when it's offering. But Benaud is bowling well, and Kanhai's innings is not all attack. The next over from Davidson is a mixture, but Nurse is equal to the occasion. Apart from Davidson's opening over to Kanhai, it's been a quiet beginning, with 7 runs being taken from the first 3 overs. But again, in Benaud's next over, Kanhai cuts loose with mixed fortunes. As usual, Neil Harvey's return brings applause from the tremendous crowd of 65,000, and there's more action in Davidson's next over, when the left-hander tempts Kanhai to hook a short one, and Harvey at cover accepts the easiest of chances. There's general regret that Kanhai didn't reach his 100, but his dismissal has swung the game Australia's way. Garfield Sobers appears for the first time on the Melbourne Cricket Ground before a crowd on tenterhooks to see his great deeds for themselves. But right from the start, the World Test record holder doesn't look in form, and before the day is over, he's destined to be dismissed twice for a total of 9 runs. In Benaud's next over, Sobers is off the mark to mid-wicket and O'Neill, and Nurse too scores from Benaud on the onside. Now watch Grout's lightning work behind the stumps as Benaud beats Sobers' bat. It was a near thing, and Sobers is content to let discretion be the better part of valour for the remainder of the over. When Davidson bowls again, Nurse removes from storage his favourite off-drive, and when O'Neill fields, his enormous throw from just inside the boundary brings an outburst of wonder from the crowd as it reaches Grout on the full. Such treatment, according to Alan Davidson, should not go unpunished, and Seymour Nurse is the sufferer. Generally speaking, Davidson is giving a fine exhibition of controlled bowling, and the batsman can take few risks when he's on the job. Fellow all-rounder Australian skipper Richie Benaud too is right on the spot. Just watch as he pins down one of the world's greatest batsmen, Garfield Sobers. The West Indies are battling to consolidate, and the first hour's cricket has produced only 29 runs for the loss of Kanhai's wicket. Misson returns to the attack and Nurse plays him with a mixture of strokes. Drinks spell the end of Sobers. He's out in Benaud's next over attempting to cut when Simpson at slip takes a nicely judged catch. A disappointed Sobers out for 9, and the West Indies in real trouble with 4 down for 139, and captain Frank Worrell coming to the crease in an effort to stem the tide. Benaud is bowling better than at any time during the innings, and Worrell is none too confident as he plays out the remainder of the over. Meanwhile, Nurse, proving to be the sheet anchor of the West Indies innings, continues to play the bowling at least as confidently as some of his more illustrious partners, and the enthusiastic Johnny Martin comes in for plenty of work at square leg. On the other hand, Worrell doesn't seem to be able to gauge the pace of the pitch, and it's no surprise when he cuts Misson onto his stumps and is out without scoring. A disastrous blow for the West Indies, but a great moment for Frank Misson in his first test. Half the side out and the visitors still 206 behind, with Vice-Captain Jerry Alexander following his skipper to the wicket. Alexander's quickly off the mark, and the general feeling is that while he's still there with Nurse, all is not lost. Benaud again, and after a quick single to Alexander, Nurse on 49 has the strike. A dogged 50 to Seymour Nurse, a half-century fully appreciated by the huge crowd of 65,000. "41 runs in a hard-fought 90 minutes cricket, but with bowling and fielding of this standard, little more can be expected. As lunch approaches, Alan Davidson is still bowling on in a great spell, and in this over he strikes another blow for Australia when he forces Alexander into edging him to second slip where Les Favell holds a sharp chance. It's a great performance by Davidson, and as the players leave the field for lunch, the West Indies are 6 for 160, with Sonny Ramadan to come in after lunch. A good rest, and Davidson is back on the job after lunch bowling to Ramadan. Although Ramadan has been promoted in the batting order since he last visited this country, he's facing Davidson at his best, and he's out when Davidson knocks back his leg stump. Ramadan out without scoring, and the West Indies now 7 for 160, Davidson 4 for 38 and Misson 2 for 36. Wes Hall is next in, and much to the delight of everyone, he wastes no time in cracking Davidson through the slips for a speedily run 3. When Davidson bowls again, Nurse has another life, as Simpson makes a terrific effort to catch him at first slip. Now let's watch Wesley Hall, the crowd pleaser, as he faces Benaud. When Hall's batting, there's always something doing, whether it's running between wickets, an exaggerated defensive stroke, or an appeal for LBW. There's no doubting the popularity of Wesley Hall, and this seems to apply equally to the players as well as to the cricketing public. Seymour Nurse continues to play a mixture of shots, but for the present his luck holds. Not so Wesley Hall. A huge swing, and then bowled neck and crop by Davidson, with Martin smartly catching the ball. Hall out for 5, the West Indies 8 for 166, and Alan Davidson's 5th wicket. Hall is replaced by his fast-bowling partner Chester Watson, and Benaud continues the attack to Nurse. Nurse has decided the time has come to attack, but he still can't put Benaud away. As the West Indies players watch from their dressing room, they see the 9th wicket fall when Nurse is caught behind off Davidson. A wonderfully courageous and patient innings of 70, during which Nurse was at the wicket for over 5 hours. West Indies 9 for 177, Davidson 6 for 49, as Valentine faces Davidson and pushes him to point for a cheeky single. Now Watson takes the long handle to Davidson and lofts him high to long off. Again O'Neill is the fieldsman, and once more a superb return from the boundary is greeted by spontaneous applause. But in Benaud's next over, West Indies' innings comes to an end when Watson goes for a big hit, and MacDonald, coming in from the long-on boundary, judges the catch nicely. West Indies all out 181, 167 behind, and Alan Davidson taking the bowling honours with a splendid 6 for 53. Benaud applies the follow-on, and Hunte and Solomon are the opening batsmen for the second time. After a 10-minute spell, Davidson begins bowling again, and the innings begins with a most inauspicious stroke from Conrad Hunte. But Hunte is soon seeing them, and this shot to fine leg brings him 2. Anything short from Davidson, and Hunte hooks unmercifully, usually reaching the boundary in the process. The power of his hooking can be gauged by the distance the ball has rebounded from the pickets. As the tea adjournment approaches, Hunte continues to do the lion's share of the scoring, being particularly severe on any short deliveries from either Davidson or Misson, now bowling, while his partner, Joe Solomon, is perfectly happy to play the role of the lesser light while Hunte shines. At tea, the West Indies in their uphill fight are none for 30, and after the interval, when Benaud continues, Hunte meets out similar treatment accorded to Davidson and Misson. But when Solomon faces Benaud, the West Indians are to suffer a bitter blow. Before completing his stroke, Solomon loses his cap, which dislodges the bails, and on appeal, he's given out by umpire Hoy, hit wicket. He hasn't made many runs, but Solomon has been a useful partner for Hunte, and his dismissal gives the Australians the breakthrough they'd hoped for. West Indies 1 for 40, and Nurse back at the crease. But Nurse's second innings stay is brief. After making 3, he plays a ball to mid-on and is run out by a brilliant return from Alan Davidson, which breaks the stumps. West Indies now 2 for 51, of which Conrad Hunte has made 41. Kanhai joins Hunte, and with the all-spin attack operating, Kanhai is quick to get off the mark. Benaud takes himself off and brings Simpson into the attack, but Kanhai looks full of runs at this early stage of his innings. His partner Conrad Hunte continues on his attractive way. To square leg, he completes a fine 50, including 5 fours. Hunte 50, but the West Indies are still 85 runs behind with 8 wickets standing. When Martin bowls again, Hunte keeps the scoreboard moving, but there's more trouble ahead. After playing some attractive strokes, Kanhai slashes at Martin, and for the second time during the day commits batting suicide as Misson takes the catch at deep mid-on. Kanhai out for 25, and a great triumph for the New South Wales all-rounder, his first wicket in Test cricket. 3 for 97 now, with Sobers coming in to join Hunte. Watch now as Martin bowls his first ball to Sobers. Sobers gets an edge and Simpson takes the catch at slip. Garfield Sobers out without scoring, and the West Indies 4 for 99 with Worrell, the new batsman, and Johnny Martin on a hat-trick. The hat-trick saved, but only just, as next ball Worrell snicks Martin and Simpson takes yet another catch at slip. The West Indies captain dismissed twice in the one day for the dreaded pair, and Martin taking his third wicket in 4 balls. Half the side out and still 68 runs short. New batsmen Jerry Alexander and Conrad Hunte confer on their policy for the remaining overs, and when Martin bowls again, the policy is clearly defined. Martin's had a great day, although Jerry Alexander is doing his best to spoil it. As far as the crowd is concerned, it's been a day of action-packed cricket, and in the closing minutes, Conrad Hunte and Jerry Alexander continue to score at a run a minute, even though their side is right up against it. At stumps on the third day, West Indies in their second innings, 5 for 129. Hunte 74, Alexander 19, needing 38 more to make Australia bat again. Conditions are cool and cloudy, and a light shower holds up the start of play for 10 minutes. Richie Benaud continues the attack to Jerry Alexander on 19, and Alexander gives evidence that he's anxious for the West Indies to score runs and score them quickly. Conrad Hunte on 74 has been there since the innings began, and no one would begrudge him a hard-earned century. Benaud's tactics at the start are to combine spin with speed, and Alan Davidson is his opening partner in this over to Alexander. Good fielding by Harvey prevents any run here, and then Alexander, after watching Davidson's bowling carefully, lets go again with a shot that brings him 2 more runs, which Harvey can't cut off. Benaud's next over sees a copybook straight drive from Conrad Hunte, one of the few occasions in this match that a West Indian batsman has really jumped out to an Australian spinner. 4 more to Hunte, and another single when he turns Benaud behind square leg. Benaud bowls his faster ball to Alexander, and it's a good one, but Alexander and Hunte are equal to the task and bring up the 150 in 208 minutes, now only 17 runs behind. Davidson again, and Hunte's single into the gully becomes 3 runs when Harvey's return is not intercepted, and 2 overthrows result. When Hunte gets the strike again, he continues to score off Davidson, and Australia's 12th man, Lindsay Klein, is still fielding substitute for the injured MacKay. After bowling well but without success, Benaud gives the ball to Martin, and Hunte welcomes the change with another fine on drive. Alexander treats Martin with more respect, and there are no more runs taken from the spinner's first over of this spell. It's a double bowling change, with Misson taking over from Davidson and immediately getting past Hunte's defence, appealing unsuccessfully for LBW. Hunte is far from being deterred, and when Misson bowls again, he adds once more to his score. The vital partnership is flourishing, and in Martin's next over, both batsmen score freely. Hunte is now rapidly approaching his century, and it comes in Misson's next over when he brilliantly hooks the first ball for 4. Hunte's 100 is scored in 243 minutes and includes 8 fours, and it takes the West Indies total to 5 for 167, saving the innings defeat. Les Favell continues to shine in the field, whether close in or in the outfield, but right now the crowd's more interested in a shower of rain than in Favell's fielding. The rain's not heavy enough to stop play, and after another run is added to the total for a leg bye, Jerry Alexander puts the West Indies another 4 runs in front of Australia when he cuts Misson through slips, giving the fieldsman no chance of stopping it. It's a terrific fight by the West Indies. They're now 14 runs in front with 5 wickets to fall, but tragedy is ahead when O'Neill bowls a wide full toss to Hunte, and he gets a faint edge to Grout, who takes a fine catch. Conrad Hunte out for a great fighting 110, and the West Indies 6 for 186, 19 runs on, with Sonny Ramadan the new batsman. Ramadan's quickly off the mark with a single, and there's still some hope that if someone can stay with Alexander, the West Indies can yet make a fighting finish of this match. Sonny Ramadan is certainly doing all he can to build the total. But Lady Luck is not on Sonny Ramadan's side for much longer. After scoring 3, including 2 from this square cut, he's out in Benaud's next over, attempting to hit the Australian captain out of the ground and being neatly stumped by Wally Grout. Grout has given a typically sound performance in this test, making very few mistakes and having a hand in his usual share of dismissals. The West Indies 7 for 193, with Wesley Hall joining the plucky Alexander on 42. With lunch approaching, Davidson bowls again, and Alexander gets 2 runs closer to his 50 with a splendid cover drive. A Davidson bouncer is neatly evaded by Alexander, and as the players leave the field for lunch, the West Indies total is 7 for 199, Alexander 45 and Hall 3. They're 32 runs in front. They have to face the prospect of a new ball almost immediately on resumption after the interval. It's Davidson again, and Alexander's single to mid-on becomes a useful 2 runs when MacDonald misfields. Wesley Hall's having trouble with something in his eye, but he's able to open it to watch Alexander drive Davidson bowling with the new ball through the covers for 3. Neil Harvey chases the ball out towards the boundary and just watch his return into Grout's gloves. That eye is still giving Wesley Hall trouble, and after some attention from Jerry Alexander, permission is obtained from Richie Benaud for Hall to leave the field and have it attended to. Play is held up temporarily while Hall is off the field, and he's not long back when he loses his wicket, clean bowled by Davidson. Ball out for 4, giving Davidson his first wicket for the innings, and the West Indies in real trouble with 8 down for 206, but Alexander still there on 51. Chester Watson is the new batsman, but Davidson can't tempt him this over. Rapidly running out of partners, Alexander decides to attack in Misson's next over in an effort to give the Australians at least a reasonable total to chase. Watson is out off the last ball of the over, foolishly attempting a second run when only 1 was needed for Alexander to retain the strike. What an innings of misfortunes. 2 run-outs, 1 hit wicket, and century maker Hunte out off a wide full toss. West Indies now 9 for 221. Alexander still there on 61, and Valentine the last man in. With Davidson, Alexander has the strike, and he scores a single near the end of the over, leaving Valentine to endeavour to hold up his end. It was a close thing, but Alf Valentine's still there. A great and at times brilliant innings comes to an end in Davidson's next over when Jerry Alexander gets an outside edge and Wally Grout does the rest. Alexander out for 72 and the West Indies innings closes at 233, leaving Australia 67 to win. Simpson and MacDonald are the Australian openers, and they're going to face Wesley Hall on a wicket that is beginning to show signs of wear and can best be described as two-paced. Not a very encouraging thought against a bowler of Hall's sizzling pace. Hall begins his seemingly endless run-in, bowling the first ball of the innings to Simpson, and it's a taste of things to come. Simpson beaten, and Hall positively demands a decision in his favour for a catch behind from umpire Eager, but it's turned down, and the next one is almost as close. After feeling for 2 or 3, Simpson finally makes contact with the bat, and the scoreboard is on the way to recording the 67 runs needed for an Australian victory. Now it's Colin MacDonald's turn to face the music, as he has faced it so often before against Wesley Hall. Let's study the colourful West Indian as he walks back the 40 paces to the end of his bowling mark to bowl the last ball of his first over to MacDonald. An over rated by many keen judge of cricket to be one of the fastest they've ever seen bowled on the Melbourne cricket ground. At the other end, Chester Watson bowls, and still there's no respite for the Australian opening batsman. When Watson bowls again, Simpson plays the first really confident stroke of the innings, and there's another run onto the total when MacDonald plays Watson off his pad for a leg bye, with Garfield Sobers making sure that they run no more than one. The field changes, and Hall is on the job once again, getting a ton of lift out of the pitch, and it's all MacDonald can do to prevent himself from edging a catch. Hall continues to bowl at a cracking pace, but MacDonald is starting to pick up valuable runs. In the long run, Wesley Hall is MacDonald's master today, and when he turns him to fine legs, Sobers takes a neat catch to give the West Indies their first breakthrough. MacDonald out for 13, and the Australian total 1 for 27. Still 40 runs needed for victory, and a lot more action before they get them. Neil Harvey's turn to face the music, and again Wesley Hall scores a direct hit. Hall to Harvey, and now watch wicket-keeper Jerry Alexander's magnificent diving catch to dismiss Harvey without scoring. Australia 2 for 27, and by no means a certainty to win if Hall can keep up a blistering attack like this. Norm O'Neill at the wicket, and there's almost a sensation off the first ball he receives from Hall. A unanimous appeal for a catch behind, but O'Neill is ruled not out, and he survives the remainder of Hall's over. There's universal applause for a magnificent over from Wesley Hall, and when Watson bowls again, there's a temporary lull after the storm as Simpson takes a total of 3 runs on both sides of the wicket. But it's only a temporary respite. Watson bowls to O'Neill. An attempted sweep, wrapped on the pad, and after some deliberation, O'Neill is given out by umpire Hoy. O'Neill out without scoring, Australia 3 for 30, less than halfway to their goal, and 3-star batsmen back in the pavilion. Les Favell comes to the wicket, determined to help Simpson stop the rot, and immediately sets about his task in tradesmanlike fashion. There's much conjecture as to whether Hall can continue in his devastating form, but it's not to be, as both Favell and Simpson shape more confidently and bring the Australian victory nearer. At tea, after 55 minutes batting, Australia's second innings total stands at 3 for 34, with Simpson 14 and Favell 2, but after the interval, Hall is on the job again, and Simpson close to edging outside his off stump. Hall is still full of fire, but Simpson is equal to the task, and there's no further breakthrough. When Watson bowls again, both Simpson and Favell are able to score more freely, and any additional run, such as an overthrow, is gratefully accepted in this tense period of cricket when every single run counts. Both Favell and Simpson are finding that they can play their shots much more readily against Chester Watson than Hall, and Simpson's classic cover drive for 4 is rated as the finest stroke of the innings. Hall again, and already Favell has shown a willingness to hook anything pitched short outside the leg stump, and 3 more runs bring victory in sight. Hall's still bowling like a demon, and Simpson this time is given the verdict following the appeal for LBW. Australia 3 for 63, now needing only 4 runs to win the test. Hall and Watson have bowled unchanged, and Favell still wants to hook. This time Favell does get Watson away, and in spite of some smart work by Jerry Alexander, it's 3 runs to win. Still it's Hall, and when he bowls again, it seems that Favell and Simpson are content to reach the magical 67 runs in singles. Simpson pushes Hall to point for another single, and with the scoreboard showing Australia 3 for 66, the scores are level. And now here's the winning stroke as Wesley Hall bowls to Les Favell. He cuts him down the gully, and the hallowed turf of the Melbourne cricket ground is ravaged by the invader. After a sensational period when they lost 3 quick wickets, Australia run out winners by 7 wickets, scoring 348 and 3 for 70 to the West Indies 181 and 233. With 2 tests played, Australia now leads 1 up in the series, following the tie in Brisbane.